Ronnie at the end, when there's council comments. I'm going to ask that we be provided a copy of the chart. I don't think there is. I'd like to see big dogs here tonight.
She's going to jump on one side of
All right, I'm ready to do it.
Ron, if they ask for a chance, give them a chance.
Oh, another one. You might get a little chance. You might get that chance. Public transportation, that would be another one. Good. Yeah. That would be good.
As soon as they get their final deal.
It is an important document.
I don't think it's, no change we made to what you see.
Did she comment on that?
She said that. You doing all right, Rob?
Yeah. Because of 122, is that one we talked about? You guys ready there?
She's saying because of North Carolina law, the Constitution,
Who's got the Ronnie got the code.
She doesn't understand the difference between qualified and dual officer.
You guys ready? Yeah. Good evening. We will call the Burlington City Council May 20th, 2014 meeting to order. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you here. Also like to remind you to silence any electronic devices. If you would pray with me. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. We have a presentation, the Many Tree Pine Historic Preservation Awards. This time I recognize Martise Taylor, Chairman of the Historic Preservation Committee. At this time, welcome.
Thank you. Actually accompanied by the Vice Chair, Molly Whitlatch. I'm excited to say that the Burlington Historic Preservation Commission voted to award 4 properties with the Many Tree Pine Preservation Award this year. The award is given in recognition of effort to preserve the character and timeliness of architecture in Burlington. Some of the properties being honored suffered damages from Mother Nature, while others were in disrepair due to Father Time. In each situation, the property owners did not let that deter them from making an outstanding renovation to the property. The Burlington Historic Preservation Commission thanks each of you for investing and continuing to invest in the revitalization and growth of the downtown neighborhood. Our downtown area is one of the most visible indicators of community pride as well as its economic and social health. We commend each of you on your investment in preserving Burlington's rich history and beautiful buildings. So first, I'd like to call up Mary Ann Butler, representing the Treasure House, for work done at 346 Worth Street. Thank you so much.
Thank
We do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Alan Gant Jr., representing Glen Raven Incorporated, for work done at 1016 West Davis Street. Oh, sure.
Thank you very much for allowing us to be here, and I certainly want to introduce my bride, Denise, who did the design on 1016, and David Smith. David, stand up, because David's magic's what made that happen. I don't know of a more extensive renovation of a residence that's taken place in Burlington's history than this particular one, and it came with a great deal of cooperation from the very beginning with the historical preservation system and the city, inspection, I mean, all of it. We crossed bridges that probably have never been crossed before. Today, the house is an incredible opportunity. I feel sure the city attorney will figure out a way for you all to come by and have breakfast with us one morning, or lunch, or dinner, or at least come by before one of your meetings. I'm serious about this, and take a tour. It is truly an incredible place, of which substantial opportunities for Burlington have already taken place in that building. Our family have been there. We have entertained the executive vice president of Ford Motor Company, which has resulted in literally millions of dollars worth of business, which has generated more business for Harold on water. And I'm serious. It's contributed to the welfare of the community, and I appreciate from the bottom of my heart the cooperation that we received and the magic of David Smith. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Next, we have John Plageman, representing Plageman Architecture, for work done at 408 Spring Street.
John's in Puerto Rico. I'll accept on his behalf. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And finally, we have Mark and Mary Smith, representing Mary Catherine's, for work done at 102 East Front Street. All right. So we have Ann Morris accepting on their behalf.
thank you. Congratulations to all. I'll echo Mr. Gant's statements tonight. I had a chance to tour that facility, and it's outstanding, and David Smith did an outstanding job with his work as well, so congratulations. Next item on the agenda is invitation to the City Council for Amateur Radio Club Annual Field Day. This time I'd recognize Mr. Christopher Tate. Welcome, Mr. Tate.
Good evening. It's that time of year again. Amateur Radio Field Day is coming up this June, and this year marks a very special Amateur Radio Field Day. The sponsoring organization, the American Radio Relay League, based up in Newington, Connecticut, celebrated its 100th anniversary this past Sunday, so that makes this field day extra special. This is the Alamance County Amateur Radio Club's invitation, as well as the ARRL's invitation to the council, as well as to the community, to come observe how amateur radio operators serve our community, the state of North Carolina, and many of our government agencies, such as the Red Cross and FEMA. For those that would like to try their hand out at amateur radio, we will have a dedicated station for folks who'd like to experience the magic of radio, and I do mean magic. This year, Amateur Radio Field Day will be held at the Alamance County Emergency Operations Center, better known as the Fire Marshal's Office, at 1950 Martin Street here in Burlington. That's 1950 Martin Street. This year, Since it's at the field at the Emergency Operations Center this year, we will turn this into a full incident exercise using FEMA's Incident Command System to test the ham radio communicators part of the new Alamance County Emergency Action Plan. This year, Field Day will be held on June 28th and June 29th. That's Saturday and Sunday, respectively. The event will last from 2 p.m. on the 28th all the way through the night to June 29th at 2 p.m. Last year we did have several visitors who came out in the wee hours of the morning. I was hardly awake, but it was fun. Last year, the Alamance Amateur Radio Club placed 4th in the state of North Carolina, and as I recall, we've been continuously doing better. So we're looking forward to another wonderful year, and it's going to be, like I said, very special because it is the 100th anniversary of the American Radio Relay League, and we just celebrated the 80th Field Day last year, so this will be the 81st Field Day, and B, it'll be at the Emergency Operations Center. Field Day is, for those of you who don't know, Field Day is an emergency preparedness exercise, like I said, designed to test our ability to communicate quickly and efficiently, during the event of a local, regional, or large-scale disaster. So once again, Amateur Radio Field Day will be held on June 28th and 29th, Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. through 2 p.m., 24 hours straight. I hope you all can attend.
Any questions for Mr. Tate?
A young man who's grown up here in the last couple of years.
I'll tell you, this podium's getting smaller every year.
No, it's not.
Congratulations. Yeah, he's been doing it for a while. How many years have you been doing this now? 4?
Yeah, I think this is my 4th invitation to the council, and I've been an amateur radio operator for 4 years now.
Right. Good. For the ones of you that don't know where Martin Street is, it's right across the street from the old Western Electric parking lot.
Yes.
Yeah, right beside Acton.
The invitation I had presented to you all has a map and directions on the back.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Tate.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics. At this time, we recognize City Clerk, Ms. Ward.
Members of council, it's my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest in matters that are before us at this time. I ask if there are any potential conflicts with tonight's agenda items.
None. Except as item number 8, and I will be asking to recuse myself from that again.
Next item, approval of minutes, May 5th, 2014, City Council work session, May 6th, 2014, City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Adoption of the agenda. Excuse me.
Move we adopt the agenda as is. Second.
Motion is second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item 1A, adopt a banking resolution authorizing the investment with American National Bank. Authorize the city clerk to attest the resolution. B, to set a date of public hearing for June 3rd, 2014, to consider the 2014-15 fiscal year budget and the community development budget.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public hearings. 2, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider approval of the Burlington Fire Station Number 6 annexation effective May 20th, 2014 at 11:59. At this time, we'd recognize Daniel Schaffner. Welcome, Mr. Schaffner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. This evening before you is a public hearing for municipal-owned property annexation, and this is a satellite annexation of the future Fire Station 6 property located on Bonner Bridge Parkway. The annexation meets all statutory requirements, and 2 weeks ago you approved a resolution of intent to annex this property. So after the public hearing, you may annex the property, become effective tonight at midnight.
Questions for Mr. Schaffner before we move forward to public hearing? Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone would like to speak on this side? Anyone that wants to speak on this side?
Will we close the public hearing?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Move we approve the annexation of the new fire station. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
That's effective tonight at 11:59.
Yes. Item number 3, public hearing has been scheduled to consider rezoning property from Public hearing has been scheduled to consider rezoning property from I-2 Light Industrial District, CB Conditional Business District, and R9 Residential District to CB Conditional Business for the use of a convenience store with gas pumps and a restaurant. Properties are located at the intersection of Maple Avenue and Anthony Road as shown on Alamance County Tax Map 666, lots 36, 37, and 37A. A valid protest petition has been received. This time we recognize Ms. Nelson. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For this issue, staff has recommended approval, and it's with the use and development conditions that were submitted by the petitioner. The commission has voted to approve it as well by a vote of 5-2. If you look in your packet, you see a staff report, and staff is recommending approval of this rezoning based on the fact that the proposed use meets the land use plan for commercial use. The property is located within an existing commercial corridor, and the area has been used and previously approved for commercial uses. And the site plan has received full approval from the Technical Review Committee. The Commission, upon their approval, found that the zoning changes as requested would not adversely affect the adjoining property, would be in keeping with the land use planning in the area, and was consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. And I believe Mr. McPaul is here to speak on this project.
What was the last name?
Mr. McPaul is here to speak on the
Okay.
project.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Mac Paul with Morningstar Law here on behalf of Sheets. We have with us several folks tonight. We got Jamie Gearhart with Sheets and Tom Anastasi. We also have Mike Horn and Chris Bostic with Kimley Horn. So what I wanted to do is just really quickly hit some of the highlights of the proposal. Chris Bostic can speak to the site plan specifics, and Mike Horn can handle any of the traffic questions that you might have. And we do have one proposal we wanted to introduce tonight just for your consideration, dealing with an issue with an adjacent property owner and landscaping. So as you've heard the description of the property, I think many of you are familiar with it. There are 3 parcels. Between this property and I-40, there are a number of commercial uses, a Shell gas station, BP station, a couple of restaurants. To the west, across Anthony, you have an industrial park and then some residential uses to the east. And then coming down from Maple Avenue from 40 is 4 or 5 lanes between the site and I-40. And there are plans, as you've heard, to realign, as you're shown on the plan there, to realign Anthony Road in the future and create a signalized intersection with Maple Avenue. And part of this proposal is to dedicate the right-of-way for those improvements in the future. I'm going to just touch on the consistency issues. As you heard, has had a positive recommendation from the Technical Review Committee and the Planning Commission. And in looking at the comprehensive plan, this property is classified as commercial on the future land use map, which is one of the key guide within the comprehensive plan for the vision. And it's also consistent with a number of policies, including the primary growth policies on the urban growth map. The plan notes that this area is a place where you want to see infill development occur, and it's especially encouraged given the existing utility and transportation infrastructure that's already in place. So you've got, it doesn't require additional public investment to support this type of development. The property is also part of a larger commercial area that spans to I-40 interchange, and policies encourage the type of development to occur near interchanges and along major streets such as Maple Avenue and Anthony Road. And even though the area south is planned for commercial development, we are buffering it as its current residential use, consistent with the policies in the comprehensive plan. So, I think it is important consideration that the property to the south is within this commercial district, even though currently there's a multifamily use on the property. And as I mentioned before, we're proposing to dedicate the right-of-way on the property for future improvements. So for the reasons stated, the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, and as noted by staff, the proposed site plan meets all of the city's ordinances, and it exceeds the buffer and transition requirements to the south. With that, I would like to offer Chris and/or Mike to touch on any of the site plan details. Also, Chris, there's I know some landscape plans to buffer the property to the south, which is something we'd like to discuss with you tonight. Sure, Tom Anastasia.
Good evening. My name is Tom Anastasia. I'm a Sheets employee. I work in the Store Development Division. I'm an engineering permitting project manager for North Carolina. I wanted to share with you a history of how our site plan has evolved to where we are today. When we first began, we had a pre-submittal meeting with city staff and NCDOT. At that meeting, we had a 6,500 square foot drive-through building with 57 parking spaces, and we took up about 90% of the parcel. At that meeting, staff recommended that a drive-through may not be the best option adjacent to residential. Also at that meeting, staff and NCDOT recommended, as Max said, 60-foot right-of-way dedication for the future realignment of Anthony Road. So we dropped back and punted it. We got that feedback. We redesigned our site with a smaller footprint. We eliminated the drive-through. We eliminated 13 parking spaces, and we essentially lost 0.6 of an acre of usable land to a dedication of a future right-of-way. We followed up that meeting with a neighborhood meeting, and we had a lot of feedback come back from that neighborhood meeting as well. One instance was to relocate a trash enclosure to reduce the potential odors coming from the trash enclosure, so we did relocate it, as Chris is pointing out, to that location. We were also asked to look at providing additional length of a 6-foot vinyl fence, which we also did. We added 159 feet, and we went from property line to property line because the previous plan went from Maple Avenue to about where the stormwater facility is. We were also asked to look at increasing the height of that fence, and we did that also. We added 1 foot of height to a 5-foot fence, and we made it a 6-foot fence. And lastly, we were asked to consider a 6-foot or 8-foot masonry wall instead of a 6-foot fence. And let me just grab one more thing. Excuse me. And we looked at this. We looked hard at this one. As you can see in the perspective view, it's our view that a 6-foot vinyl fence is just as effective as a masonry wall when you consider the grades, the dense landscaping that we're placing behind on the condominium side of the property line. So out of all of those, we did 85% of those recommendations, short of the material of this barrier. So where we are today, we're a 6,400 square foot building, so we reduced that footprint, 6 pumps, 12 fueling positions, and 44 parking spaces. A traffic study was performed, and Kimberly Horn is here to answer any specific questions about that. Our site plan is consistent with that traffic study, and in fact, we have longer turn lanes than what was recommended in that traffic study as well. The stormwater runoff, I like having Chris next to me here. We have a surface or at-grade stormwater feature. It's going to treat for stormwater detention, where it would be required to choke down the rate of the stormwater, leaving the site to be equal or less than what it was before we were there, as well as the water quality to just reduce the pollutants of the runoff. So the 30-foot buffer, if I can go back to that for a minute, it's 443 feet long, 30 feet wide, and we're showing that 6-foot fence. And I do want to note that 6-foot fence, once we placed it there, we did not take a 10-foot reduction as the ordinance states. We could take a 10-foot reduction. We decided to leave it 30 feet and still implement the fence. We'll have landscaping on both sides, which is about 9 canopy trees, 18 understory trees, and 89 shrubs. And we're also willing to, and that perspective view shows it, we're also willing to include an additional 21 cryptomerias also known as green giants, to further enhance and separate the two uses. So we feel we've gone above and beyond along this buffer and for the site plan to satisfy staff and adjoining property owners. I'll just wrap up here. The building architecture, we construct our buildings mainly of stone and brick materials. We'll have at this facility about 27 indoor seats and 32 outdoor seats. And we're very excited to have another Sheetz convenience restaurant in the city of Burlington. I welcome any questions that you have. And again, Kimley Horn is here to answer more specific questions about the site plan and traffic study if you have any.
Questions?
Just for clarification on some of the conditions that you guys, so after your original proposal and meeting with staff, the realignment of Anthony Road was something that you conceded at that point in time for the 60-foot right-of-way after staff? Is that from the original plan? And that took, you said, 6/10 of an acre?
About 6/10 of an acre. It's not the 6/10 of an acre actually will go to the point of the triangle,
Okay.
because on the other side of the right-of-way is unusable as well. So it's the right-of-way including that point of the triangle.
Okay.
What is the size of the trees you're going to put in? 5, 6 foot? I know they're going to grow like crazy once you get them in the ground. 5 foot, 4 foot?
I believe that at install, most of them are going to be 12 feet in height, and the perspective view that we are sharing with you tonight actually represents mature height. The cryptomeriums, we called a few nurseries. We can get those at 12 feet tall, and as everybody knows, maybe you don't know, they're very fast growers,
Yeah.
so they'll grow together very quickly and create that additional buffer.
Any other questions, Council? The only thing I would add to that would be the white fence. If there's some concern on the neighbors on the other side, you could always paint that green, I mean, not paint it, but get that color, green as opposed to white, and then it blends in with the landscaping as well. So the cryptomeriums in itself, you won't see anything on the other side. And when they reach maturity, you won't even see the lights on the other side.
That's correct. And if you look at that perspective view kind of alludes to that as well. You can't, from the perspective view, where's the? Yeah, so perspective view 1, looking from across the pond, you don't see anything. And then looking towards
Right.
the building, you barely see the
Right.
top of the structure.
Right. That's a good,
At full maturity.
I like the cryptomerium idea. Okay, any other questions? It is a public hearing. Any other comments from you gentlemen? Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone on this side that would like to speak?
Ronnie, they're not finished with
Wow,
the
they're not finished yet.
Ronnie, they're not finished with the presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry. Does someone else need to speak from this group?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Yes, sir.
My name is Marshall Evans. I'm one of the owners of the Anthony Pines condominium project that is directly to the south of the proposed Sheetz development. This project was built a little over 10 years ago as a condominium project that is currently rented to individual tenants with the long-term plan of selling those condominiums individually as we age, and that's a part of our retirement portfolio. We do have a lot of concerns from the folks that are currently there now. The bedroom windows from these particular condos are less than 50 feet from this subdivision, or from this proposed Sheetz store, even to the fence area. And we're just really concerned, and the neighbors are concerned about the noises that the 24/7 operation presents to folks trying to sleep at night, deliveries coming in and out, trash trucks coming in and out, visitors to the store coming in and out and making noise out back. These folks are trying to sleep less than 50 feet from this project. Also, we also very concerned about our ability to keep this project rented. Currently it's a little small, sleepy community. There are a number of residents in there. That's why they're there. We've maintained a really high occupancy rate simply because it is quiet. It's close to the interstate. And overnight, this project will drastically change, where these folks live. In addition to that, At best, we had proposed a brick fence to give us some separation, a little better separation between the two projects. But at best, we realize that our property values are going to go down as soon as this is done. We do realize that our rental pool will probably go down. It's one thing to ask someone to rent a property that's in a quiet little area, but then to rent a property that's in the back door of a 24/7 restaurant is a totally different situation. So we could get caught with some vacancies in the property and nothing we can do about it. And then as we age and begin to retire, this is a part of our retirement portfolio. We really expect the property values to go down simply because of the operation that Sheetz presents daily. We do think that the pool of folks willing to purchase a project behind a 24/7 operation like this will be much smaller than there is today. So I don't think there's any way that we could not lose some money here, and potentially could lose a tremendous amount of money based on this operation. It's one thing to have an area zoned for commercial business, but it's another thing to allow certain types of businesses to come into that area that really negatively impact the way people live in their homes. And we think that's what we have here. Had this been a CVS or a Walgreens or any number of things that close at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, its residents would have been fine with this. But the fact that this operation is open 24/7 with the noises and everything that go with it, the increased traffic, I think it's just a lot to ask us as an owner and the folks that live in these properties to contend with on a daily basis. And for that, we are very concerned about what's going on. Now, we also are aware of some other areas in the community where residents have had a really similar type problem. The Walgreens down in Graham. We rode down there today. There was some concern about protecting the property values and the noise issues behind Walgreens. They constructed a beautiful 12-foot fence, double brick, columns every 10 foot to protect those residents. You go up across the mall behind, I guess, in the Harris Teeter project on the last little section that they built there, that developer protected those residents with a nice brick fence. And something that amazes me, you even go up to Trinity Worship Center. They probably spent $200,000 on a fence to protect those residents. Now, our number one concern here is to protect our investment and to make sure that these homeowners have a decent place to live, that we can rent now, sell in the future, and I do not think that this project will allow that to happen, and at best, it's going to cost us quite a bit of money. And then we would ask that the council would strongly consider that. We proposed several options to Sheetz over the last couple of days. All were denied. They did make some concessions, with the dumpster and some other things, but it's amazing to me that you consider those concessions when they really were the right thing to do to start with. Nobody puts a dumpster on a property line, 30 feet away from somebody's back patio. But we're just asking that, as residents of the county, as taxpayers of the county, that you help us protect our investment, because we realize we're in a situation, there's nothing we can do about this. We can't protect our investment here. It's up to you guys to do it for us, and we appreciate your concern.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Anyone else on this side that would like to speak?
I'm Patrick Haywood. I actually represent Mr. Evans and Mr. Withrow. We filed the protest petition that you had before you. I did just want to update you on the conversations and sort of where things came down. Obviously, it's a very important matter to my clients. It's an important decision that you're making for the community. It's certainly consistent to move this commercial project forward, and we understand that. But I'm sure you're sensitive that we're taking a residential R9 designation and making that general business. And that calls us to sort of step back and make sure that we've really looked at this. You've heard from Mr. Evans, and I won't belabor that point, that there are existing residences there. And the one thing that we really felt like would handle a lot of issues was a masonry fence. You a moment ago heard from Sheetz say that they considered that matter. Well, I'm not sure how seriously they considered it, because up until today, they still had not, it appeared to me, had not priced it, were seemingly surprised by the prices we handed them. I'd like to hand you an estimate that was prepared for the city. I know this is my first time standing before this council up here in Greensboro quite a bit. I think my clients really thought we were going to get a resolution here and they'd be able to withdraw their protest bid or not even have to file one, because the numbers and the fix, at least to satisfy these residents and these property owners, was relatively small. It is that flexibility this council has. Note that even today, the plan has been changed, which is a little unusual. The site plan has again been changed to add those 21 green giants. That did arise out of discussions that we were having throughout the day. But turning to these options here, my clients also are general contractors. They requested and put out to bid to subcontractors how much would this fence actually cost that we're talking about. The option one that you see there is an 8-foot brick fence. And the option, and you see that's $44,000. We can just mark that one out. We've moved away from that. We're trying to reach a resolution as we've been requested to do, and it's a good idea. Option two was an 8-foot vinyl fence. That's, they're not doing that. That's Sheets is putting in a vinyl fence. They're not doing that one. So we're down here to the option 3 and 4. Option 3 is a 6-foot brick fence with columns. The columns are 10 linear feet on center. This is from General Shale. I'm sure you're familiar with the name. So this is an established company here locally that's going to perform this. And the turnkey price is $33,510. And what you get for that is you're getting a fence along the entire property line, a masonry fence that is 6 foot high from the ground. So it's going to go down about 6 or 8 inches and be on the foundation. It's going to look aesthetically pleasing to those neighbors. And the cost of it, the difference in what's being proposed, is simply $21,981. And it alleviates other concerns. It alleviates concerns with noise, because the noise is going to reverberate back off a masonry fence, unlike what it'll do off a vinyl fence. I know you have these matters all the time in front of you, and you're familiar with these things. So the noise from the sheets is going to stay on its property with a masonry fence. Additionally, heaven forbid, this operation going 24 hours a day, that someone errantly drives their vehicle, a masonry fence provides protections to the residents. So at the end of the day, you've got Sheets here, and this seems like a very flexible group. They've come to you today changing their plan. I'd ask you to ask them to step back and change that plan one more time. I do not believe that this meeting is a preordained conclusion. I can just look at this group and tell that you're thinking about it, and my clients have asked for help. Please show us that. Show us that flexibility if this matter needs to be tabled for further consideration. I feel like we got very close with the Sheets folks and have just run out of time. If you have any questions of me, I would be happy to answer those. But again, my client is seeking your help in this. I think this is a very, very reasonable request, and one that was actually put forth by the Planning Department.
Questions for the gentleman?
That's the end of your presentation. Does anybody else, Mr. Mayor, ask questions after everybody spoke?
Okay. Anyone else on this side would like to speak? Anyone on this side that would like to speak?
Sure.
Just real quickly make one comment about and I appreciate the comments from council. I think the one fundamental issue for your consideration, and understand, we would all like to have a resolution where all parties can be in agreement, and there's been an effort in that toward that vein. Part of the struggle here is the solution, whether a masonry fence really is the appropriate solution to deal with the situation with respect to aesthetics, noise. Certainly landscaping provides a much denser buffer and could, I think, better address lighting. This is all within the same commercial district of the city, and it calls for the most intense commercial uses. So I think part of the question or struggle that we've had is a masonry fence, even if they were the same cost, is that really the right solution here versus a much denser buffer, vegetative buffer, which could accomplish, I think, better addressing the concerns that have been raised. We're here, though, to answer your questions and listen to your feedback, but just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else on this side that would like to speak?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Mayor, I'd like
Okay.
to ask some questions. Now,
Sure.
Mr. Haywood, if I could, when your client built these apartments, what year was that?
I'm going to bring my client forward to
Sure.
answer this question. Mr. Evans?
Early 90s? I think early 90s, middle of 91, 92, 93, that time frame.
And what was,
They've been in there for a number of years, and the two pieces of property north of that were both residential at that time.
they were residential, zoned residential at the time?
The brick house immediately behind the little service station or the maintenance station there was residential. The next piece of property is still residential and has always been that way.
At any point in time, did you ever consider building, when you were, obviously you're appreciating these things down as rentals now, but at some point in time, you're probably going to flip them over to condo, as you've talked about, and sell them off during your retirement. Have you ever considered putting up a fence yourself?
To this point, we haven't needed to. We've been, buffered by another residential piece of property where the owner maintained this piece of property. They were quiet, they were great neighbors, and it provided just really good place for our residents to live. And the fact that it's quiet and it's safe, that's why they live.
Well, I'm not going to make any, I've gotten calls and lobbied on this, and which we all do, on these matters. One thing I do make a point of, if I'm going to talk to one party involved in this, I'm going to try to talk to everybody involved in it. And I've been trying to get folks to talk to each other and work toward the middle here. Personally, I would prefer a brick fence there. I think there's some advantages to it. One, I am aware of those other areas of the city where we have those brick fences, and also down in Graham, and I think they do the same as the masonry. I think they probably would handle the noise a little better. Certainly over time, less maintenance involved with the brick fence, durability, aesthetics, all geared toward make me would want to have a brick fence there. At the same time, I also recognize that you have some responsibility yourself to turn around and look after your tenants. And I've been trying to get the parties here to think in terms of what the solution could be. I appreciate these numbers. I've heard different numbers thrown out. What I was looking to do is see if as far as the difference is concerned, to see if the parties could meet, talk, and come up to a solution where they would share in the cost. I think any one party can satisfy and resolve the whole situation, but I think it's always best when all the parties come together in a situation like this and contribute to the solution. A little disappointed that y'all hadn't been able to actually reach some sort of solution, because quite frankly, it's my understanding this is a $4 million project. Am I off on that? Everybody's looking at the floor.
It's $4 million.
Am I close?
You're close. The average sheets is a $3.5 million investment before land or rent.
Sure. So what difference we have here is really kind of small, but I think it's always great when all the parties in interest have a little skin in the game, so to speak. And I do think the advantages of having, in the long run, having a brick, even though I like Mayor Walls, and he's he knows, if you ever seen his yard and seen his home, he knows plants and keeps them all, his yard's immaculate, and so I don't doubt one bit that what he's talking about there as far as the landscaping is concerned would certainly help. Is it my understanding that these plants are going to be on the far side of the vinyl fence there, or the fence?
Frankly, and that's part of what's, we've sort of, it'd been nice if the parties have been speaking for months. And candidly, your involvement, you did get involved and asked the parties to speak with each other, and things started happening a little today for the first time. And frankly, we got a plan about 45 minutes before we walked in here today, an updated landscaping plan, which is why I've sort of said it'd be nice if these parties, just as has been suggested, would walk out this door and talk for 20 minutes, because I think we're asking you as a council to make a tough decision on something that ought not to be that tough. I don't disagree with you. Yes, the landscaping, we understand, is on the other side of the fence, but just as you saw, just today, within just a few hours, we got an updated plan. I think these parties were very close on this masonry fence issue.
Can I address one issue?
Sir, if you step up here and speak in the mic, it would help all of us. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to address one issue, Mr. Huffman, that you entertained. We did look at an opportunity several different times about fencing the back of these properties to provide some protection for our residents. But being a condominium project, from what I understand, that is common area, and we're not allowed to fence that and actually provide access to only one resident. Now, unless I'm wrong, I think by ordinance, we're not allowed to do that. Is that correct? So we do not have that opportunity. The only protection that we are afforded is the fence that's on the property line. So we just can't arbitrarily build fences in there.
This fence is actually not going on the property line, is it not? It's actually, they're proposing it to be 30 feet off, 10 yards, basically off the property line onto the Sheets property. So is that my understanding?
That's correct.
What the proposal is here?
50 feet. Sure. Just come forward. We're going to start collecting offering plate here soon. We'll get the brick wall done tonight. Go ahead, sir.
The fence that we show on our site plan, it's at the top of a hill, maybe a 6 to 8 foot hill, and we put it at the top of the hill for that reason, to give more of a height on it. And all the landscaping, there is landscaping on both sides, but the majority of it is on the condominium side.
The landscaping.
The landscaping.
Right.
Yeah,
If you thought
fence
about,
is at the top.
another thought would be to build a berm and put the fence on top of the berm. Is that even a possibility?
Sounds like it's a natural berm.
I mean, you could even do it even more so.
Chris may have to talk about the grading
Okay.
on that.
Yeah, we're coming up at a pretty steady slope from the property line to
Sure.
the back of the curb. So to actually berm it up and come back down, I don't know that we've got enough space to do
Okay,
that.
just a thought.
Sure.
But it's not a bad thought, though, because some of the problems they're talking about, you're talking about noise. And, you know, it's hard to imagine that you're not going to be generating the type of noise that would be disruptive to anyone's residence, whether it be condominiums or whatever. You know, I really wish you folks would, you know, take another stab at it in the hallway here. We got other business to handle, Mr. Mayor, and if these folks would if we could give these folks a minute to try to, and frankly, I think all of you ought to have a little skin in the game in here.
I think that's a good idea. Give them a little time. I think you're awfully close. I think it'd be worth it for this council to allow them an opportunity to give it a try. But if you come back in and don't get it worked out, I can assure you we'll make a decision because it's on the agenda.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Do I hear a motion for that, or what?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to what?
Allow them, 20 minutes
Okay.
or so, and come back and report back.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that brings us to, public hearing has been scheduled to consider rezoning property from R15 Residential District to CR Conditional Residential District for the use of a 244-unit multifamily development. Property is located south of Rural Retreat Road and north of Boone Station Drive, as shown on Alamance County Tax Map 3-26, Lot 4A. We will now recognize Ms. Nelson.
Thank you. This issue comes before you with the recommendation of staff. In our staff report, it's short and sweet. Staff's recommending approval based on the fact that the proposed use meets the land use plan for high-density residential use. The site plan has received full approval from the Technical Review Committee, and we took it before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They, along with the use and development conditions, and the commission approved of the plan unanimously and recommended it before council.
Questions
Mr.
for
Lawson
Ms.
Brown
Nelson?
is here.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Lawson Brown is here to speak to it.
Mr. Brown, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. It's my pleasure tonight to be representing Mr. Brad Whitmore from Greensboro, who has got this property under contract. I'm also representing Tagalongs, LLC, Kendall and Janie Overman, who have owned this property for quite some time. And they are the two applicants. Barrett Hagan has drawn the plans. Mr. Hagan, the civil engineer, is here for those questions that I can't answer. And also Zach Tran is the construction consultant on this as well, if there are questions on the construction. As Ms. Nelson indicated, this comes before you on the basis that it is consistent with the long-range plan that you studied and adopted and had great public input into back at the time when Target and Alamance Crossing were coming together on a conditional zoning basis as well. This is conditional zoning. There are approximately 10.73 acres, and there are 244 units, which we had proposed. 4 of those units were over the clubhouse, and after market study, we would like to increase that to 248. We had 4 two-bedroom units there. We're going to 248 with your permission, and we would submit that as an amendment tonight. Instead of 4 two-bedrooms, there will be 8 one-bedroom units there. They will be fully furnished units, the only ones that are fully furnished, with dishes as well as furniture, with the goal of renting to corporate folks that come into town, such as the Cambro folks that came in and announced had their groundbreaking today. That would leave 68 one-bedroom units, 156 two-bedroom units, and 24 three-bedroom units, and we would like to reserve the right still to modify that unit count to the 248. Of the 10.73 acres, 6.7 is impervious surface, 4 is pervious. All of the environmental regulations, rules that are applicable to water retention and cleansing are addressed on the site plan, and there is a detention pond in the lower southwestern corner of this property. I think it's instructive that the entrance on Boone Station Drive will be right in, right out only. And in that area to the east, there is a triangle that comes in that the DOT still owns. And there's an area in that area that CBL still owns. We've talked with CBL. John Michelle is still very familiar with the Alamance Crossing project, and we have an agreement to run the sewer there, so we don't go on Miss Rumley's property to the east, nor do we go on Miss Smith's property to the west. Those are family with Mr. Overman, and he has talked with both of them, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. On the first floor of these units, it will be completely masonry or stone and fiber cement board on the second and third floor. That's a hardy cement type product that is better than the vinyl. There will be vinyl on the hallways where folks will bring their furniture in and out. The stairwells will not be wooden. They will be precast metal with concrete in them. The units interior wise will have granite countertops, bronze fixtures, high-end appliance. One of the things that this project has that none of the others that I'm familiar with, it would be an on-site trash compactor to eliminate the trash and cardboard, etc. If you go over to some of the other nearby complexes that are very nice complexes, you see a lot of trash around the dumpsters, and that this is to eliminate that. There'll be sound suppression between the floors. There'll be a dog-friendly and a pet wash on site, high-speed internet, 11 mil laminate flooring, tongue and groove, and most of the units will have some sort of island in them as well. On the exterior, as I said, there would be 3 stories, no vinyl exposed to the outside. There'll be a saltwater pool if recommended by the expert in that area. Large pools generally are chlorine because of the usage. If the projected usage here allows a saltwater pool under recommendation, then we would do that. The concerns that Ms. Smith had, or she articulated to the Overmans, were that she didn't want folks going onto her property, nor did she want any of intrusion into her property. Her finished floor elevation is 697 feet. Our elevation, beginning elevation, is 681. So leaving her property, heading toward the buildings on the apartment complex, you will go and we will have a 4-foot vinyl fence. She has a chain link fence on her property, so this will be a coated fence that will be much more attractive. Then we will go 10 feet in, and within that 10 feet buffer, we will have a 3-foot berm with plantings on top of that, and then we will have a wall that will drop down to our finished floor elevation. So it would be extremely difficult for someone to scale that wall, go onto her property, etc.
What kind of wall are we speaking about?
It will be a landscape wall, Mayor, that will...
Brick masonry wall, or?
No, it's a modular block, retaining wall. It will be holding her
Sure.
side up. We will be lower.
All right, thank you.
On the other side, there will be similar setbacks to Ms. Rumley's property. So I think that we have addressed the concerns, hopefully, of the 2 neighbors that are closest by. When you look at the traffic pattern on Rural Retreat Road, the DOT, and as you know, the staff is TRC, the Department of Transportation has a representative, and we've met every criteria that they've put out. One of the things that they requested was a left-hand turn eastbound on Rural Retreat into Joe Davidson Park. That does nothing for the project that we have, but it certainly helps traffic access into the Joe Davidson Park. All of that work will be done in the existing right-of-way. Ms. Smith was concerned that we not go upon her property, and also all that work with the decel lane, the widening of the road necessary for the left-hand lane into Joe Davidson Park will be done on the existing right-of-way or the property that we're presenting tonight. There'll also be a turning lane into our property from Rural Retreat. There will be a gate on the Boone Station Drive side. From a traffic standpoint, the folks that are living there will have just a short turn right into one of the more, I guess, better thoroughfares, University Drive, so that they will be able to get right onto University Drive and won't be driving through other parts of Burlington. The other items having to do with the traffic patterns are that all of the services that these folks need are, in fact, right there immediately in the area. There are a number of reasons that I think you should follow what the Planning and Zoning Commission has done, follow your long-range plan, and follow what the Technical Review Committee recommended. First and foremost, it's consistent with with the long-range plan as high-density multifamily. Second, unanimous recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Third, strong recommendation of staff and TRC. Fourthly, the plans fully comply with all the criteria that is required. Fifthly, on the traffic improvements, there's a short distance to a major thoroughfare, a short distance to all needed services, improvement of Rural Retreat Road. 6, the multifamily you have used as a bridge or a buffer between single-family residential, which we have to the east, and park use to the north, and business use to the south. Seventhly, it has the indirect effect on the two residences, which we have hopefully addressed to their satisfaction and your satisfaction. Eighth, it is the highest and best use of this property. It's not the guiding principle that we make land decisions on, but it certainly is important. Incidentally, and as a ninth reason, there'll be some revenue on the enterprise fund, sewer and water to the city on these 248 units, as well as an increase in the tax base. I'm happy to answer any questions, and my folks can help me if I can't answer them.
Questions for Mr. Brown? It's not quite your turn yet, ma'am. It's all right. I know that. I can tell. Any other questions from council, Mr. Brown? This is a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Brown. This is a public hearing now. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. You would state your name and address, please.
My name is Martha Jacoby, and I live at 4059 Williams Mill Road, and I'm actually here on my behalf as well as on Cleo Smith's Life Trust. Her grandson asked me to come speak for her because she is 94 and is not able to get out at night. Now, she is sharp as a tack, if you want to talk to her.
No, we've had the opportunity.
Yes, and she wanted me to remind you of that, too.
Absolutely.
I've known her all my life. I live actually down the road from her off of Rural Retreat. And so I offered to come as her voice. Okay. That being said, it is freezing in here, and I know why everybody's got a suit on. I am about to freeze.
There's a reason for that, Mr.
Is there a reason? You want me out of here, right?
Not just kidding.
Anyway, well, Scott said that he spoke with someone at the planning, Joey, I think at the planning board, and understood about the 20-foot buffer. And also there would be a natural barrier, which I think Mr. Brown, the planning, the berm that you're talking about, the 10-foot berm, you were talking about the degree. So is the fence will be up here, the berm on top of the berm? Is that what you're saying?
There's you started from the property line and worked your way in. The fence would be in the property. Then you have a 10-foot area where the berm would be.
Okay.
Then a wall would drop elevation about 8 feet. And that would be the first floor of the apartment.
Okay. So is it going to be from the Rural Retreat to the Boone Station, the whole property line?
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry.
Would you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Barrett Hagan with Hagan Engineering. The wall would go approximately halfway down the shared property line. It would go past the first two buildings. I don't know if you can zoom into the site plan or not. I've got a bigger one that I can show her.
I got it. I mean, I'm
You
good.
got it?
I've got it.
Okay, if you start, can I come over there and move the hand? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so the retaining wall would start here, so that's where grade would meet, natural grade. And then as you came along this wall, it would get to a height of 8 feet. And then in this corner, it would go from 8 feet back down to 0 right here. So the fence would be along the property line. There would be 10-foot area for landscaping. And there would be a drop in elevation of 8 feet down to this first floor elevation.
And can you point out where Ms. Smith lives?
Right in here?
Me. Okay.
That's correct.
That is? Okay.
Yeah, because that's Rural Retreat's up here, right? So it's right there, right up there. Because that's the opening over here to the farm.
I think our house is about 130 feet from the property line.
Okay. Does that help you, Mr. Chuck?
That does, okay. And that was something that Scott asked me, or Mr. Smith asked me to. She has farmland that she farms behind her or leases out, correct? And that's part of her income. And she's a little concerned about people getting over into that property, and hey, I have property on the corner of Rural Retreat and Williams Mill Road that I put in the forestry program. And I have had all kinds of people, and of course I don't have a fence around it, and so that's part of my problem, but people coming in on the property, and with people kids exploring or whatever. She is concerned about the farmland being preserved. She's been there basically all her life. It's going to stay in the family. Her grandkids will get the property.
Can I ask one simple question?
Sure.
Is Ms. Smith in favor of this project?
She's concerned about her privacy.
Okay,
That's her main concern.
thank you.
And for that reason, and I don't blame her. I mean, I live around the corner.
Sure.
I'm concerned with the traffic. Now, you all know that we have apartments down at the end of Rural Retreat, the Windsor, that have never completed. They've never been completed.
Mhm.
And so, questioning a little bit about why we need these on Rural Retreat. And then we have the Chase and the Etham's Points in that general area. But their main thing is the privacy and making sure that the vegetation is aggressively growing and that there is privacy, because she don't want to go anywhere. And she's not going anywhere.
It'd be a perfect time tonight to talk about some plants and growth and that sort of thing.
Right.
A fence.
Fence.
And like I said, you know, Scott is a business owner in Atlanta, and he just had to build a dealership, and he had to put one of those big fences. So he's very aware that it can be done,
Yeah.
and for that reason. But I don't think, I know, she was a lot like my dad. They grew up together. They weren't really excited about change, but they kind of knew it was coming, and let's make the best of it.
Sure.
And so, and with it being farmland, you know, it's going to stay farmland as long as is possible, because that is part of her income, and I think part of the family's income and stuff like that.
Does she have any problems with trespassers on her property now?
Y'all might be able to answer that.
She hasn't spoken to that.
Because I would think with the park right across the street, if she's going to have problems, there's thousands of people over there. So.
I know she's been real concerned about the kids, and I think the city has put some things in place at the park, because my son was a sideline rep and worked for the city this summer, and he took your little class, and y'all were talking about being aware of who's and what's around you and things like that. So I think the city has made some, you know, like, they're trying to protect the kids as much as they can. But I know for me, I have trespassers on my property.
We made
but
concerted
that's
efforts of Ms. Smith when the park was built, I can assure you.
See, I tell you what, she's worn me out.
Hey, look, I've learned a lot, and I mean, I've known her all my life, but I'm kind of I'm what she calls her dollar ride, and which is fine, and I take her to church and things like that, and she's sharp. Let me tell you, there is nothing that she doesn't. And she, like I said, she wanted me to make sure she remembered her, that she had spoken 3 times in front of you.
Please give her my regards.
I will. She'll be glad that you said that. But the main concern is, like I said, the privacy issue and her being protected, and protect her farm, that farm property right there. But
Thank you, ma'am.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else on this side that would like to speak? Anyone on this side that would like to speak?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
I move that we approve the rezoning.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? There you go.
I need a motion.
Yes.
Statement of consistency. City Council finds that the above amendment is consistent with the City of Burlington Comprehensive Land Use Plan, and that this action is reasonable and in the public interest, and that the amendment is compatible with existing land uses in the vicinity and reflects the changing land use patterns in the area.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Thank you. Item number 5, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider amending City of Burlington zoning ordinance text section 32.9, table of permitted uses. Ms. Nelson.
Thank you.
Give it a minute, Amy. You want to see how it
Send police out there.
They're going to come up with something.
This request is for a simple tweaking of some uses allowed in our ordinance. We're looking at I-1 and I-1A districts to add the use of auditoriums. And it's, what we're looking at is sort of an indoor recreational use. And it's allowed in other areas, but not in these. And for economic development reasons, we thought it would be a good move to try to make the playing field, as it were, more equal.
Questions for Ms. Nelson? This is a public hearing. Anyone on this side that would like to speak? Anyone on this side?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
Make a motion that we approve the text amendment as requested by staff.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
We need a statement of consistency on this.
Yes.
You do. I make a motion that we approve the statement of consistency that this council finds that the zoning text amendment is consistent with the City of Burlington's comprehensive land use plan, and that this action is reasonable in the public interest, and that the amendment is compatible with current land use practices.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item number 6, public hearing has been scheduled to consider amending City of Burlington zoning ordinance text section 32.10.A, portable storage units. Ms. Nelson.
Thank you. This request may sound a little familiar. We brought it to you a few months ago. Unbeknownst to us, our community development folks use these trailers of a certain size, these units of a certain size, for their clients when they're rehabbing a home. And so what we wanted to do was just to be a little more lenient in the size, from 16 feet long to 20 feet long, and in the amount of time that they can stay from 60 days to 90 days to accommodate our community development program.
Questions for Ms. Nelson?
These are based on the property that the tenant is
It's when
redoing.
we're rehabbing a home.
Yeah, okay.
And they have to leave.
Is there an extension allowed after the 90 days?
It's possible, but they've never gone up to 90 days either.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Nelson? Public hearing. Anyone on this side that would like to speak? Anyone on this side that would like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, back to Mr. Butler's comment, and some of the concerns we hear is, Amy, people who get these trailers are not getting permits, or are they? They're not. So quite frankly, the timeline, there's not a foolproof method to determine when that trailer was put there.
It's complaint-driven if there's an issue.
It's complaint-driven, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
And
correct.
now with the community development,
Yes, it is there.
we do know.
Right.
But yes, the rest of it is complaint-driven.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
Close the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Make a motion that we approve the text amendment on portable storage units, section 3210A, as recommended by staff.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion that we approve the statement of consistency, whereas the City Council finds that the zoning text amendment is consistent with the City of Burlington's comprehensive land use plan, and this action is reasonable and in the public interest, and that the amendment is compatible with current land use practices.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Under new business 7, City Council will consider adopting a resolution in support of the Main Street Solutions Fund grant application on behalf of the Front Street renovation project. This time we'd recognize Ms. Morris. Ms. Morris.
Good evening, Council. I am here to speak on behalf of the Front Street Renovation Project and Core Properties and Development. As you may recall, this is the renovation of 3 historic properties in the 100 block of East Front Street that is directly across the street from Paramount Theater and runs from Main Street to Spring Street. This project has been in the works for many years. Mr. Robinson and his wife Wellesley have worked really hard to assemble these properties, and the Downtown Corporation has been a supporter since the beginning. We have four small grants in support of the project, 3 for the renovations of each building, each $20,000, and $6,575 in a residential upfit grant. We recently learned that this project would also be eligible for the Main Street Solutions Fund, which, as you recall, is the same grant fund that we applied and were successful in obtaining for Company Shops Market. This particular grant, which is run through the North Carolina Department of Commerce, requires that the city be the actual applicant and the grantee, whereas Mr. Robinson and his company would be the sub-grantee. Therefore, this resolution is asking that we make application and recognize that Mr. Wall is the highest elected official in the community and the one to make that application, and it also stipulates that I would be the one to be administrator of it and do the communication back and forth with the state, should we hopefully be successful. And I can give you a few facts of the project if you would like to be reminded. It is, as currently planned, a $1.3 million project. With this grant money, they will be able to enhance the project, taking it to an approximately $1.9 million project, which will also allow them to secure a even more desirable restaurant tenant for the large corner property, which is a 2-story restaurant bar, is what it's planned to be. The project encompasses 22,000 square feet of space. Planned uses include 2 full-service restaurant and bars, 1 pub with a live music venue, 2 to 3 retail spaces, a dining patio, which is now a somewhat unsightly parking lot that both businesses on either side will have access to, 3 loft apartments, and 4 office suites on the upper floors. So it's a very substantial project. We feel like it is a connector between the east and west sides of downtown, and it will add a much-needed entertainment and dining component to our downtown.
Questions for Ms. Morris?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion that we adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Robinson, publicly, we'd like to say thank you for what you've doing and what you're trying to do downtown on Front Street. If we can be of service, please let us know. But we're excited about it. Thank you, Ms. Morris, as well. Next, report pending changes with use of funds from Urbanized Area Formula Funding Program 5307. Mr. Mike Nunn. Welcome, Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, just want to give you a quick update. I'm not sure you can see. I'm going to go over it with you. Recently, had a few series of staff meetings talking about the Section 5307 grant, which hopefully you recall now is a major funding source for all public transportation nationwide. Beginning with next budget year, July 1, 15, the major change for DOT and the federal policy will allow rural systems to access that 5307 funding. The reason that's going to happen, basically, is they have decided the split, that rural money is going to go to rural money and urban money is going to go to urban money, in simple terms. And for Alamance County, it's been determined that we're 71% urban and 29% rural. And like I said, those are just policy changes. It's already been done, adopted. It's driven by the federal policy, so it's not something we're collaborating on. It's basically a report to us as this is coming. We want you to be aware of it. That sort of shifts the spotlight for MPOs. On a side note, we're always involved with urban transportation issues. Well, we're going to now be involved in rural transportation issues, a little bit heavier from a funding standpoint, making funding decisions. I'll get to that in a second. The key point tonight on the update is not only are they going to be eligible, act to themselves in any other transportation system in our area, they're going to be coming to you to make that request. You may recall you're already funding and have been the Piedmont Area Regional Transportation
for the park and ride lot service in Graham. You're doing that on an annual basis. You're getting a letter request. We're going to do this with these funds. Well, you're going to now receive a request from ACTA for that as well.
Will they have to be designated as a direct recipient, or are they automatically because of these changes?
They not automatically, they're going through the process now to achieve that status and to receive the funds. They would have to achieve that, and they're in that process right now.
And are these changes, as I've read through them, are these changes, are they going to be affected ACTA specifically adversely because of rope funding cuts, or?
Yes, sir, and we're still learning issues about that. You can imagine if you're going to only receive 29% of your funding, that's going to make a major change. You've got a gap, 70% plus gap, but you've got to look somewhere to provide that. You also have to look at what you're doing, the type of trips you're providing. We discussed that with Ralph at ACTA. They're in the process now of evaluating exactly what type of service and to what extent that service is going to be. Maintaining that service at a level of today is a substantial amount to continue that on.
How does this affect our discussion as a council with public transportation?
Exactly. That's the next slide.
Okay.
What will happen now, not only, and you see questions up here, the grant request will be made annually on the process. You as a board, as the recipient of that grant, will make those allocations, any allocations to that grant, as you have been doing with PART previously. Once you make that allocation, the formal process, it will go to the MPO to endorse and submit to DOT, but the MPO always follows our local agencies. We don't get ahead of you. So we'll look to you to make those allocations and those decisions. I also listed, as I mentioned, PART, you have that request pending now annually. What I've done here is just listed a few others that possibly may come in. I mentioned ACTA already. It's feasible that TTA, coming from the Triangle, would submit a similar request to meet up with PART. It's feasible that would happen. We have a fixed route question for our area that's in question at this point, making a decision on that. If you do get into transit, you need some funds reserved or capital improvements. You're not wanting to spend every penny of it. Then you want to do some type of 5-year growth plan, 3 to 5 years. So you've got need for those funds. I mentioned that as reserves as well. But right now you're working with 1.8. And I've listed 6 different things that may be coming to you for request. As before, it was really fixed route focus and the PART request. So we're changing policy, but we're getting into different requests for that grant fund.
Well, the TTA and the ACTA and the PART Express are really the only things that are added, because these other items would have had to been considered anyway.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to paint a picture of what what an annual request might look like. You have all these entities coming or responsibilities to look at when you allocate that grant.
That triangle connection, would that depend on if Mebben's a part or not?
Not really for that park and ride. It's a regional process, not a fixed route.
All right.
I think originally there were supposed to be 3 park and ride lots, one on the western side of the county, one on the eastern side of the county, and one on the central part. And TTA at one point in time was working with PART for an MOU to operate the eastern park and ride as a connector.
Correct. And they still are.
Still,
we're very close to actually, in lieu of the improvements being made in Mebben, to go ahead and bring them to the Graham lot.
Right.
And go ahead and create that.
But there's still some discussion about the park and ride lot somewhere else in the county, right, as we speak?
In Alamance County?
Right.
In the western section, yes. The eastern section would be covered in the Mebben lot area.
Right.
Yes.
But you said Graham.
Yeah, Graham's already existing.
Right, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Any questions for Mr. Nunn?
The reason we brought this up is that in the last meeting, it appeared the council was looking at making a decision on public transit in June.
That is correct.
We felt like it had to be something that you guys have it for you to consider now, because the point we get into is when you get into public transit now, you have to look at allocating some funds for capital, and then especially as you go along the process for major replacement of equipment. So what this has done, this puts quite frankly, the burden in terms of decision-making becomes now on this board. But it's $1.8 million. You're going to have other people here asking, and all for good reasons. I'm not saying it's not. But I think, as we keep talking about, if we do public transit to give it a chance to be successful, you've also got to manage it financially, where you know that there's going to be some capital needs that you have to give it a chance to work. So we just want to make people aware going in of that.
Mayor, you asked how this would affect us with regards to our ongoing discussion about public transit. We were always going to be responsible for this 5307 monies regardless. That's how Park gets some of it now. We've got an MOU with Park to get some for the parking ride lot that they have. But actually, it helps us from a standpoint that currently in our fiscal budget, we give money to ACTA to support them. They can actually leverage this 5307 money now, which would relieve us from that burden. It could actually benefit us to some regards from that standpoint. And we're still going to have to manage that pool of money. So it actually, in my opinion, is going to make it a little bit easier because now you're going to know who the players are and you can leverage those resources to do additional things because you're always going to have ACTA as a paratransit provider. And the other routes and issues in play have been discussed for many, many years. So I think it really just clears the picture up. It just paints the burden of management becomes more descriptive as to what we're going to have to deal with now, and I think it's actually a benefit.
Any other questions for Mr. Nunn? Thank you, Mr. Nunn. Okay, it appears that we have some gentlemen back in the audience, so I would direct your attention to under public hearings, item number 3. You'd come forward again, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We took your comments and feedback about looking at a solution that would require that both parties put some skin in the game, and I'd like to put a new proposal on the table. I can't say that we've come to final agreement about this, and this, I think, somewhat underscores why we got to where we are tonight. I mean, we've been having ongoing discussions for some time now since the neighborhood meeting and have talked about how to make this brick fence work. So what we heard tonight from the adjacent property owners is they have a hard bid at $33,500. The concern that Sheetz has had is when they've gone out to their subcontractors and bid it out, that's come in at a much higher price than, and so taking on the risk of just a carte blanche, doing the brick wall, it could easily cost $75,000 or more. So what we'd like to do is propose to commit to do a brick fence, but it's under the condition that Sheetz will contribute $34,000 toward this brick fence. They as you can imagine, they do lots of stores all over. They have a process for their bidding and how they construct these stores. But what they would do in this instance is separate out the bid for construction of the brick fence. And in addition to the normal subcontractors they would use, they would allow the adjacent property owner to come forward with a qualified bidder to bid on it. And if this party, in fact, which came in with a bid of $33,500, that would the 34 would more than cover the cost of that construction. And so what Sheetz would commit to do is accept the lowest bid. So if it's $33,500, the 34 covers it. If it's $38,000, they would still commit to the 34, but they would have to make up the difference. And Sheetz could choose a higher cost option, but they would still commit to the lowest bid. In other words, if they decide, well, I'd rather go with someone I know, it's going to cost me more money, I'm not going to charge the property owner adjacent to the south, we'll stick with that lowest bid, whatever that comes in at. If for whatever reason it comes in at more than $34,000, Sheetz commits to do the 34, and the adjacent property owner opts not to pay the difference, then Sheetz still commits to do the vinyl fence with the landscaping that they've proposed to do tonight. So that is, they've had some conversations along those lines, but that's what we would propose.
Is there any questions for?
Yes, sir, I sure do. I'm sorry.
Paul, Mac Paul.
Is Ron Cynical, y'all are buying some of this property from Mr. Cynical? He's not here tonight, is he?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you had any conversations with him?
In terms of?
His interest in this project and the success of this project?
Sounds like you're done.
Yeah. Done. Get the rest of the money.
I mean, I haven't been party to the conference. He's a seller. Obviously, the project's contingent on purchase and development of the project from Mr. Senecal.
All right.
And both parties are in agreement with what you just
No, I mean, the problem, from what we understand, is that, and I don't want to speak for the adjacent neighbor, but what we understand is what their preference would be is that we commit to pay for the cost no matter what those bids come in. So even if it ended up coming in at $200,000, they're saying we would have to take that risk.
I've heard a great explanation that this is all it's going to be, so that's...
That was what was presented, was the 33.5 option 3. That's what we heard. Is that
Absolutely.
correct? Is that correct, sir?
That is when we put it out for what the cost of this to do, that's what we understood would be. Here's the problem with the proposal, if it's my turn.
Yes.
I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
No, you're not.
Here's the problem. As we got out there, what we came to understand is we can't agree on how to build a brick wall. Sheets apparently builds a brick wall in one of the most amazing ways.
Let's build it this way.
Well, that's what we thought too, but that's not what Sheets wants to do. Sheets made it very clear to us, and I mean very clear, that these local general contractors do not build a brick wall like Sheets builds a brick wall. Nobody builds a brick wall like Sheets builds a brick wall. That they've got to engineer it. They got to go out, they got to get engineered drawings, got to get engineered plans, they got to really shoot the moon on this thing, and at the end of the day, we're going to have $115,000, those are the exact numbers that came out of one person's mouth, $115,000 brick wall. Here's the problem for my guys. One, they shouldn't have to pay for anything on someone else's property where they're the ones asking for you to do something. They are asking you to do something for them. We are already there trying to protect our residents. So we shouldn't have to do anything. And they had done nothing until we got that for them. Went out, handed it to them, and said, that's how much it's going to cost. But, again, we don't know how to build a brick wall. They told us we don't know how to build a brick wall. So they're going to go out and do a bunch of engineering. And they're going to, first of all, they're going to engineer it, plans and specifications, a brick wall. Then they are going to oversee the construction, and whatever that costs. So once they put out the bid sheets, plans, and specs, there's absolutely no way anybody could say that that bid, which came from a local contractor, General Shale, about building a regular brick wall like I think you build in Burlington. I live in Greensboro, I'm sorry. We build just regular brick walls in Greensboro. Nothing particularly complicated on a 6-foot wall, but apparently this one's going to be. So I'd summarize it this way. Yeah, we had a breakdown.
Okay, I think we have it.
Yep.
I think we have your
No
picture.
problem.
And really, we'd ask you, don't hold us responsible for doing anything on the property.
Understand it.
Thank you.
Anything else, sir?
Again, I mean, we're committed to contribute to what their bid. I mean, obviously, we're not going to have another party design the sheets and...
Understand.
Okay.
Any questions from council in reference to this discussion? Okay.
Are we still in the public hearing phase?
No, the public hearing's been closed.
Okay. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the request as Sheets is represented with the vinyl fencing that was originally constructed. Based on the concessions, it meets staff's recommended approval. P&Z approved the project. It meets our land use plan, and TRC gave their full approval. It looks to me like with the realignment of Anthony Road, the dedicated right-of-way, they took staff's recommendations, they cut their footprint down, they've eliminated their drive-through, they reduced 13 parking spaces, enhanced turn lanes, landscaping both sides. It appears to me that, and part of this property, I think, is actually I-2. Is that correct? Part of the whole project? So there's lots of permitted uses that could go in I-2 that are far worse than what this requester is proposing to put in there. So I'd make a motion that we approve their recommendation as it's been heard.
And as Councilman Butler said, I think he's totally right on all counts here. All of the parties, P&Z, and everybody considered it and thought it was a good idea to do it. So I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Brings us to item number 8, unfinished business. Item 8, City Council will continue discussing the hiring process for a new city attorney.
Mayor, I'd ask you to be allowed to recuse myself on this matter.
So moved.
Hold it.
We need a consistency statement on that last rezoning, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Go ahead and, somebody make that, read that.
Need to make a motion on the consistency.
I will, wait just a
Okay.
minute. Let's wait for these.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I'd also like to make a motion that we approve the statement of consistency that this council finds the above amendments consistent with the City of Burlington's comprehensive land use plan, and that this action is reasonable in the public interest, and that the amendment is compatible with the existing land uses and will provide for the adaptive reuse of the property being rezoned.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now, unfinished business, item 8, City Council will continue discussing the hiring process for a new city attorney.
Mayor, at this time, I would ask to be recused.
So moved.
Yep.
You got a second? Motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. This time we recognize Mr. Bateman. Mr. Bateman.
Mr. Mayor, at the last meeting, we reviewed a proposed advertisement for legal representation. I think everybody was generally approved with that ad, small minor addition that we discussed. The 5-page limit on resumes. We had a blank in there about what we would advertise as the range of salary. And I think Mr. Butler wanted some information about our prior budget for the last 5 years, which we have provided to all of you. So that really is the last item we need to iron out before we start the advertising.
I would say this, Mr. Bateman and I discussed this in the very beginning. The number that we talked about was somewhere in the range of 95 to 125. Councilman Butler at the last meeting asked about the former attorneys, and I think that number was 147 or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. But that gentleman had 39 years of experience or 41 years of experience. So, I would suggest that we start off a little lower, and not really knowing what we're going to get in this application pool. That's just what I'm thinking.
What was the numbers again, Mayor?
I went 95 to 125. That was what I was thinking. I know that Mr. Bateman suggested 125 to 150. Is that right, Mr. Bateman?
Yeah, and the 150 may be a little high. Maybe 120 to 140 might be more appropriate.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is a salary range for this position. Everything else has been ironed out. I think that the council has agreed on what Mr. Bateman has put together for us, with the exception of the salary range. So the floor is open for some discussion on the numbers.
Well, I'm assuming that once we put this thing out there with the range, we would present an offer to a prospective candidate within that range.
Yes.
Then it's up to theirs to take it or not. So I think it would probably, in the world of private enterprise, you want to put your best foot forward to get your best candidate, but you want to have a floor that you can live with as well. So I think the 140 might be a good cap. We've got the ability to peel it back or to make an offer something less than that, but we want to be sure that we get some qualified candidates if we're going to move in that direction. I personally don't have a strong preference either way, but I think that would probably benefit us better.
Councilman Ward, your opinion?
I agree with Mr. Butler. You want to get qualified candidates, and really too, when you think about it, when you're asking somebody with 10 years of experience, that's a lot of experience, and you really need to pay people for what they've done and accomplished in the past. And like I said, I don't have any problem, going to the 140 range. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So maybe 115 to 140.
That's a good range.
You all right, Glenn?
Yeah, I was sort of considering 120 to 140. So still in that.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
120 to 140, so we're still in that 150.
Yeah, 115 to 140 is a good range. Gives you should attract some qualified applicants.
Do I hear consensus then? I'm sorry.
Go ahead with the consensus of 115 to 140.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Got a motion for the range to be 115 to 140. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
Mr. Mayor, we'll start the advertising process hopefully this week.
Okay.
I've got it for 30 days.
One question, Charles, if you would, if you just let us know where it's advertised,
Yes, sir.
And Charles had mentioned also earlier that the advertisement, we're going to go back to having a 5-page limitation on resumes,
Right.
because you get a lot of resumes and there'll be a lot of reading, so in 5 pages, hopefully they can tell, about their experience and what they can do for the city of Burlington.
The North Carolina League of Municipalities is one advertising.
Yes. There's a statewide North Carolina legal newspaper, we'll advertise in that, plus the league publication, probably also the local newspaper, and that may be about it.
Any other questions or comments in reference to that process before we start?
Let me just review in my own mind. We're going to advertise it for how long? I don't have that timeline in front of me. I know we
had projected we'd advertise it 30 days.
30 days, okay. And
That timeline that I put out in the beginning for discussions, pretty much off anyway
Okay.
at this point in time.
I think what we're looking at now is probably receive applications through possibly June 25th.
Okay, and the council will receive copies of all applications, correct?
After the deadline.
Yes.
Right. And the applications will go to Ms. Ward.
They'll go to Ms. Ward,
And she
yes.
will timestamp them as
Yes.
well. Okay. That good?
Yep.
Okay. That brings us to public comment period, and we have one, Alex Alfonso. Mr. Alfonso, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Alex Alfonso. I live in the 800 block of High Street. As you know, I'm going to talk about public transit. This has been before the board for many years now, and I guess maybe you're going to vote on this in June. I haven't heard anything solid on that, but that's what the plan is. And last meeting, I brought up some numbers about the golf course, and I want to give an accurate accounting, for Mr. Laws was a bit agitated about that. I wanted to put together, he gave me 5 years of what has been spent on the golf course. $3,368,901. That's maintaining the golf course for the last 5 years. Less capital expenses, which is $135,360. And the loss on that is $707,000, $669. When I'm looking at those numbers and the trepidation that this board has shown about going into public transportation, it kind of, I have to scratch my head about this, because here it shows that you're losing about $100,000 a year on the golf course. Now, and I've told you before that I've estimated that a public transit system would save me $2,000 a year that I would after put back into private businesses and local businesses here in Burlington, which would just raise revenues for the city. So, and I'm not sure that the golf course is doing that. So, in a city where there's needed infrastructure projects, such as retrofitting the water management system, and then we also have 6 police officers that are coming off a federal grant this year, and there's a strong need for public transportation. I'm scratching my head on how there could be so much debate about public transportation, but not even a question of spending this much on the golf course. Also, I saw for a line item in this year's budget, $264,000, correct me if I'm wrong, roughly, for the Burlington Airport. 232. Which was about that much last year as well. So that's close to $500,000 that you're subsidizing air travel from what I understand, for wealthy corporations who use the airport, and also when Mr. Danley was here petitioning for that money, he mentioned Elon students who take their parents' corporate jets to school. Now that you're willing, without question, again, almost $500,000 in 2 years to subsidize air travel, but you won't fund public transit to help out the everyday man out here on the streets in Burlington to get a job, to have access to health care, I also am hard-pressed to justify that kind of thing. So, if you do, and I would encourage you to go even sooner, I think it's June 17th, I think you do it the first week of June, vote on public transportation and take this into account. Because there's been a lot of talk about public transportation costs too much and this and that. From these numbers, it looks like the city can more than afford it, and it's more than needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alfonso. Brings us to city council comments.
I have one comment, Mayor, if I could, please, and I've spoken to Mr. Bateman about this. At the last meeting, we adopted the changed charter, and what I would like to see a copy of the proposed bill that would, be presented for the adoption of the changes. I'd like to get a hard copy of it, just look back over it, because unless I miss my guess, probably it's going to be some more changes or suggestions made in legislative drafting when it gets there. That's been my experience, and I'd just like to look at it one more time and understand the timing is a real critical issue, and I'll look at it right away. But I said last time, and I'll say it again, it's a very important document. We lived with that for a long, long time. I'd like to look at it and go back through it one more time. Mr. Bateman's agreed to send it to me as soon as he receives it. Okay. And you might want a copy too as well.
Yeah, everybody will receive a copy. The legislative bill drafting will make some revisions to it. They have been in conversation with us already about some changes they want to see made. So those are things that we'll have to do, and we'll get a corrected copy to you when it's ready to go.
Okay, any other comments from council?
No, I think that's a good idea. I appreciate Bob doing that.
A couple of comments. City Administrative Office will be closed Monday, May 26th, in observation of the Memorial Day holiday. Join your neighbors and police officers for coffee with a cop at the Company Shops Market, East Front Street, May 31st from 8:30 to 10:30. Burlington City Park Amusement Park rides will be open on Memorial Day from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Fourth Friday's Downtown Burlington event this Friday, May 23rd. Free concerts on the lawn behind the Historic Depot, food trucks, and other activities beginning at 4:30. I will bring this up again, and I know that I certainly don't want to beat a dead horse. However, the privilege license tax is going to be discussed, I think, Thursday. I would encourage each one of you guys to contact Senator Gunn, Representative Ross, and Rydell to talk about how this is going to affect our city. Once again, it is a revenue stream for us. There's a lot of discussion across the state about it, and things that I've heard to this point, other elected officials are discussing property tax increases and or a cut in services. I was in a meeting last week that talked about one of the cities in reference to garbage pickup, for example, going every 11 days as opposed to once a week. So it's a serious issue. I know it's not on our radar. It should be, because it doesn't take effect until July 1 of 15. But they're going to make this decision real soon, and it's very, very important to us as elected officials in the city of Burlington to make contact and encourage them to make sure they fully understand the effect of what they're going to do to us.
And Mr. Mayor, let me ask this question. If I understand the reasoning is that they're not going to do anything to hold cities harmless for lost revenues from taking the privilege license away, but they think that there's going to be an increase in sales tax, but in fact, our sales tax reports for the first 3 months,
it's flat.
Flat as can be.
Right. Well, an example would be Wayne's Attic on Front Street. I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, I'm assuming his $25 fee. And then you have others that may be paying $50. Bottom line to the story is the cap is going to be $100. So this council could actually move Wayne's Attic from 25 to 100 to offset a little bit of that loss. But then you have your Walmarts, Kmarts, Targets, that group of people that pay off their gross receipts. Now they're going to be at $100. So now we have to explain to Wayne's Attic and Walmart that they're paying both the same amount. So that doesn't quite seem to be fair to me. And then, of course, I heard out of Raleigh that you can always make it up by a property tax increase, and I have to say this council's been very frugal over the years in reference to tax increases. So it's something we need to think about. It's something that we need to put forth some effort in attempting to make sure that our delegation represents us well. Any other comments from council? If not,
let me just say that Bob Ward and I just went through a TAC meeting downstairs, and before the next work session, I think it would be great if Mr. Nunn would make a presentation to the whole board as to what you covered tonight with us regarding the new rating system that we have, and make sure this whole council is aware of everything that's on the getting priority that the MPO's putting forth, if we could do that.
well, Mr. Nunn's already on the agenda for the work session for responding in reference to public transportation on that work session in June. And then the vote will be up or down the second meeting in June. So, yeah. It's up to the city manager.
The road situation, and I'm not trying to be presumptuous here, but that's just that's part of the process. The final ranking on roads, if I'm not mistaken, by DOT doesn't really take place until next summer.
Well, here's the deal, I think, is that what came out last time were state projects across the state that was listed by DOT.
That's correct, but we have
I'm sorry, go
we
ahead.
have recently received the division and regional level projects, which we discussed tonight.
And you will vote on that sometime in July?
We'll actually come back in August. We'll have public input from June and July.
Okay.
We'll come back in August and do that.
Before the public has input on it, I think this council needs to understand it and have input on it.
Sure.
Too, okay?
Okay.
I think that's important because we need some instructions from the rest of you. You know, David and I go and we sit in, but, you know, we need to know how the rest of you feel so we can carry your message to the MPO.
But hopefully, and I'll explain the process at the work.
Yeah, and that's fine, but what I was thinking, what was just released, though, from DOT was state-level projects.
But it's all now. We have it all.
Okay.
We have all
All right, good.
Yeah, we have
All right.
division and region.
All right, good. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, guys. Great job.